So let's begin the next session, that is specialized areas. So we have four set of other standards that we have. One is specialized areas, which deals with special purpose frameworks, and we have related services, review and assurance engagements, which are dealing with various things which I already told. Like we have totally 46 engagement standards, out of which 35 standards on auditing, 3 standards on auditing only. They are also dealing with auditing standards only, but they are specially considering about specialized areas like special purpose frameworks. If the financial statements are prepared in a special purpose framework, what auditor has to specifically consider? That is what 800 series addresses. Then we have review. Review is like 2000 series. Related services 4000 series. You know, whatever services we provide, they are broadly classified into two categories: assurance and non-assurance. Non-assurance means where there is no third party. Assurance means a third party is involved. In an assurance engagement, there are three parties who are involved. One, the responsible party, the one who prepares the subject matter. The one who prepares the subject matter. For example, in audit, subject matter is financial statements. Responsible party is management or those charged with governance. Correct? Management or those charged with governance is the responsible party. They prepare the financial statements based upon some criteria. That is called as applicable criteria. What is it called as? Applicable criteria. So the responsible party prepares the subject matter based on applicable criteria, for which the auditor, another party, the auditor verifies that financial statement subject matter against applicable criteria and gives a report. And he will give a report, and that report is used by users. That report is used by users. So totally there is a three-party relationship: responsible party, auditor and the user. And there are two more elements of this assurance engagement. There will be a subject matter, and the subject matter is prepared against applicable criteria. So these are the 5 elements of an assurance engagement. Now this assurance is again two kinds: assurance on historical financial information, assurance on historical financial information, assurance on other than historical financial information. On historical financial information, we give 2 levels of assurance. We give 2 levels of assurance. One, reasonable assurance. Another one, limited assurance. Yes or no? We know this. The basic difference between reasonable assurance and limited assurance is as this. Reasonable assurance, we tell the whether financials are good or bad. Are they reliable or not? Whereas in a limited assurance, we just say that not bad. If at all I did not find any mistakes in that. We don't say that they're good. We don't say that they're true and fair. We say that we don't have anything to say that they're not true and fair. Negatively we will say, like suppose if a movie is so super good, we say that the movie is excellent, hit, super hit. If the movie is like okay, it is not like you can't even watch it, it's okay, one time watch, not bad. Limited assurance is not bad kind of assurance. Reasonable assurance means saying that it is good. You're getting it? So limited assurance is a generally lower level of assurance than reasonable assurance. Now the limited assurance is addressed by a separate set of standards where we call them as review standards. Standards on review engagement. What are they? Standards on review engagement. Whereas reasonable assurance, auditing standards. We have totally 38 auditing standards technically. 35, 200 to 700 series. 3 standards that are dealing with special purpose frameworks. Then we have other than historical financials. We are providing assurance on not only historical financial, we are also providing assurance on other than historical financial information. For example, we have seen 340T. We are giving assurance on controls, which is a non-financial information, which is a non-financial information. We are even providing assurance on prospective financial information. We are even providing assurance on prospective, that is 3400. We are even providing assurance on pro forma financial information. Pro forma. What is pro forma? What is prospective? That and all we'll discuss in the assurance chapter. Then we have the final non-assurance services. Non-assurance services. if you recollect professional ethics, in that there is something called management consultancy and other services. Inside that consultancy and other services, there are some assurance services like internal audit, environment audit, energy audit, various. Ignoring that, most of other services are non-audit services. Most of the services that are covered in that management consultancy and other services definition in professional ethics, they are all non-audit services. All that comes under related services. All that generally comes under what? Related services. Now, whether a CA in practice, can he provide both assurance and non-assurance to the same client? Yes, he can provide. Subject to, suppose if it is a company, they have given a list of services that an auditor cannot provide. Prohibited services. Except those prohibited services, except those non-audit prohibited services, rest all other services you can provide. For example, one doubt was asked, in the previous session. Suppose there is a company called ADP Incorporation, that payroll company, let us assume. They approached me and they asked me to be a service auditor, and I accepted the appointment, and I'm giving report all that, independence, everything is to be required here. So I accepted, I'm giving service organization, service audit report, all that. Because they impressed with my work, they even proposed me, why can't you be the stat auditor? I can accept it, no problem, because both are assurance only. So for a company which is a listed company, can I do both 3402 engagement? Can I do even audit engagement? If there is no prohibition, you can do both. Where is prohibition on this? In 144 section, is there a prohibition on this? No, so you can accept. So whenever a conflict, whenever you get a doubt like this, simple, interpret, is there a prohibition? If there is no prohibition explicitly, it is permitted. Clear? These are the composition of various standards. In that, now we are going to discuss about special purpose frameworks. If you observe this, 800 series, if you observe, the name itself says, it's not audit of financial statements prepared accordance with a special purpose framework. They added a prefix called special considerations. Like, what does it mean? Which means, if you are auditing special purpose financial statements which are prepared in accordance with special purpose framework, you can still follow all the auditing standards that are given under 200 to 700. However, with coming to reporting alone, 800 itself gave an exclusive format. So that's why we follow 800 format of reporting. If at all 800 is silent on the audit report, we would have followed what? 700 format. When we are doing audit of special purpose financials or audit of general purpose financials, in both the cases, your objective is to obtain reasonable assurance whether the financial statements are prepared in accordance with the applicable framework. In a general purpose financials, applicable framework is general purpose framework. In a special purpose financials, applicable framework is special purpose framework, as simple as such. So our objective is same, which means the methodology of conducting audit is also same. Okay, when every aspect of audit is same, what is special about this framework? Are there any specific points I should consider? Yes, you have to consider certain specific points. Those specific points are addressed by 800. When you are doing an audit of special purpose financials, are there any specific things to consider? Apart from 200 series to 700 series, anyhow you consider that. Are there any other specific things that you need to consider? Yes, you need to consider. 800 answers that. 805 is also answering special considerations only. Provided here in 805, you are auditing not complete set of the financials. You are not auditing complete set of the financials. Generally, whenever we think of financial statements, it is complete set of the financial statements. It is complete set, nothing but balance sheet, P&L, cash flow notes, statement of changes in equity, which are prepared in accordance with some framework. So this financial statements full set is called as what? Complete set of financial statements. This full set is called as complete set. But here you are not doing complete set. You are only doing single financial statement. You are auditing only a single financial. Suppose an entity approached you just to audit cash flow statement. Just to audit cash flow statement, or they approached you to audit a specific element called stock. For example, banks will do stock audit, right? Stock audit comes under specific element audit. 805 is applicable there. Stock audit in the cases of banks, 805, this is specific element, because I'm doing audit of a specific element or a specific account or item of the financial, specific account or item. Audit of single financial statement or specific element or item or account of the financial statements. What specially you need to consider? What are the points you should consider if you want to take up this kind of activity? Standard 805 answers. Whereas 810 is talking about, you see here, they are not using the word audit of summary financials. We don't audit. We only report on summary financial statements. We only report. Getting it? Like many confused with audit of summary financials versus report of summary financials. We don't audit summary financials. We'll discuss, don't worry. I'll explain all the logic slowly. So on summary financials, we only give a report. That's it. We just give a report. After confirming few things, we give a report. We don't specifically and separately audit summary financial statements. Summary financial statements are nothing but as simple as such. You will find public companies, not public sector companies, government companies, they are advertising about their financial results, annual financial results. They are advertising in the newspapers. You will find in many newspapers, especially during the month of April, May, June, many government companies presenting their condensed financial statements. Balance sheet they will present. In the newspaper they will publish. In the newspaper they will publish P&L. They are the best example of what? Summary financials. Summary financials is also called as internationally condensed financial statements. They are internationally known as what? Condensed financial statements. Understood? So that is what entire 800 series is dealing with. Now let's begin the 800 directly. We already discussed, if you recollect, in the fundamentals topic itself. What is a special purpose framework? What is a general purpose framework? I already explained. In a special purpose framework, the rules and regulations for preparation and presentation of financial statements. The rules and regulations, the rules for preparing the financial statements is dictated by a specific user. Is dictated by a specific user. As per his rules and regulations, we have to blindly prepare. That's it. Whether they are achieving fair presentation or not achieving fair presentation doesn't matter. Remember, special purpose financial statements are not available on a public domain. They are confidential in nature. What is a special purpose framework? Does Companies Act talk about it? Does SEBI talk about it? No. It is prepared for a special purpose. What purpose? Nobody knows. Nobody knows that purpose. Suppose a company chairman who already retired from the active affairs of the company, he want to review company financial statements in a different principles. With the different principles he want the picture. So he asked for the company directors, like, for me alone separately you prepare financials on a cash basis. I will not believe on this accrual system, all that. Cash basis you prepare. What are all provisions you created in normal financials, which is accrual, right? Give me a list of provisions. Give me a statement where the profit calculated on cash basis minus expected losses provision, what is the revised profit? Give me that statement separately. So I want to see financial statements with a different perspective. I told what is my requirement. The board of directors have to prepare financial statements exactly as per my requirement without any deviation. They have to exactly prepare as per my requirement without any deviation. Now, since since board of directors has to prepare without any deviation, this is a compliance framework. This is what? Compliance framework. Like whether the chairman, he gave a rules, right? On what basis we should prepare financials? Whether they achieve fair presentation or not doesn't matter for him. I am not bothered all that. I want, this is how you have to prepare. That's it. Whether this is fair or not fair or doesn't matter. I gave you the rules. You follow the rules. Prepare the financial statements as per that and then give it to me. They prepared and gave it to me. Now whether they prepared as per my rules or not, I want assurance. Whether they are prepared as per my rules or not, I want an assurance. So I appoint an auditor. Now for the auditor, which standard is applicable? All other standards are applicable to audit. Additionally, what is applicable? 800 is also applicable. Because these are the financial statements prepared in accordance with special purpose framework. So audit of financial statements prepared in accordance with special purpose framework. What are the special considerations? Special purpose framework means, now you understood, right? That is why I tell special purpose framework is a best example of compliance framework. Compliance framework, what is it? What actually it says? Some rules will be there. You strictly has to follow the rules for preparing the financials. The compliance framework is a financial reporting framework where financial statements are prepared as per the requirement of the framework. What framework says, as per that requirement we prepare. That's it. No deviation. Exactly we follow that. Now this framework is a special purpose framework. Here we are talking about what special purpose. What is the characteristic here? We have to prepare as per the rules given by the chairman. For his internal purpose, for his decision making purpose, we have to prepare. Can I deviate? No. Sir, it is not achieving fair presentation. His methods are unconventional, not achieving fair presentation. None of your business. Prepare as per his requirement and give it. Can I call this requirement of special purpose framework as an example of compliance framework? Yes or no? Exactly. Whereas general purpose financials, the Companies Act specifically emphasizes auditor has to verify whether the financials are true and fair or not. You see 129 subsection 1 Companies Act financial statements section. Every company shall prepare financial statements in accordance with accounting standards, in accordance with Schedule 3, and shall reflect a true and fair view of the affairs of the entity. Means Companies Act clearly says annually every company prepare financials, right? They must be prepared as per standard. They must be prepared as per the Schedule 3. In addition to it, it must also achieve true and fair view. When there is a requirement in the framework that the financials should achieve true and fair view, naturally the framework is fair presentation. What does it mean? You know, generally when you're preparing financial statements, you prepare as per some rules, right? You prepare as per some rules, right? Though that rules are like originally required to follow, if at all you feel that some of the rule is not achieving fair presentation, you can deviate from the rule. You can deviate from the rule. Follow some other rule that brings a fair presentation. That flexibility of deviation is permitted in which framework? Fair presentation framework. In a fair presentation, we are deviating to achieve fair presentation. Ultimately, to achieve fair presentation, only we are deviating, not for some other purpose. Clear? So, compliance framework, one of the best example is special purpose frameworks. These are all best example of compliance frameworks, special purpose frameworks. Getting it? So, the SCA 800, they are dealing with, can you accept the engagement? How to plan and perform the audit engagement of special purpose framework? How to express opinion? But it does not dealing with expressing opinion on effectiveness of internal control. Of course, the standard does not deal with internal control related issues. They are mainly dealing with what? Financial statements. How are they prepared? Are they true and fair or not? That's it. What is a special purpose framework? It's a framework for financial reporting. Special purpose framework, as it's a financial reporting framework designed to meet financial information needs of not wide range of users, specific users. You see, in general purpose framework, here they will add one more word, common financial information needs. When I will see common requirement in everybody, when the users are wide, when the users are many. Yes or no? The requirement of applicable framework determine the form and content of the financials. What constitute a complete set? So what is the complete set of financial statements? What should be the format of the financial statements? What should be the content inside the financial statements? That is entirely decided by the framework. Correct? That is entirely decided by the framework. According to whose requirement you are preparing. Suppose if I am preparing financials as per Companies Act, then the Companies Act will tell you what format, what are the components of financials, all that Companies Act will tell you. If some user is telling you, then he will dictate it. Next. So whatever I have told is included in the entire first question. Now, what are the considerations when accepting an audit of special purpose framework? What are the considerations when you are accepting? This is an important question, 4 marks or 5 marks question straight away. What auditor has to consider when you are accepting audit of special purpose financials? Very simple. The first thing I look at is, who is the user? What is his requirement? What is his requirement? What rules and regulations he gave so that the requirement will meet? I will first analyze the user requirement, needs of the user I need to look into. And I will also look into what rules and regulations he gave. First point, I will look into what rules and regulations. Whether that is acceptable or not, I will check. Whether that is acceptable or not, I will check. Acceptable means what? Directors came and showed me, sir, this is the rules, sir. This is the user, sir. So he want financials to be prepared as per these rules and regulations. Now I need to think from user point of view. From the user point of view, is this rules and regulations acceptable based upon his requirement? I will think of it. If at all the responsible party prepare the financials using the rules which user is also asking. If that is acceptable from the point of view of user, that's the first condition for me whether to accept or not. Clear? That's the first condition for me whether to accept or not. Second thing what I will check is whether is there any acceptable organization standards. I will see, are there any standards for this acceptable organization standards for preparing special purpose financials? I will see that. For example, suppose, best example I'll take. Suppose the government has given a grant. The government has given a grant to NGO. Now government want the NGO to prepare some reports and financial statements so that utilization of grant is given highest priority. Where in the financial statements major attribute is what? Utilization of grant. So government want to see the financial statements of this NGO which contains major focus, which gives major focus on utilization of grant. So government gave the rules and regulations. On what basis you have to prepare financials, all that. This is one of the condition for the grant given. This is one of the condition. Dear company, take this grant. Use it for the purpose you mentioned. Use it for the purpose you mentioned. Give me revised financial statements and a report on grant utilization, and in the financial statements also grant should be given specific emphasis. Generally, this NGO will not prepare financials as per that requirement. For NGOs, there is a separate organization. There is a separate organization available. For example, financial reporting body for NGO. There is a separate body which releases some format of financials which NGO has to follow. Hypothetical example I am telling. For example, there is a separate NGO body, financial reporting body for NGO is established for NGOs. For example, that body decides what framework is applicable for NGO. What framework they should follow normally. That format generally NGO prepares. If at all government has not given any such condition of format, all that, NGO will follow that format. If NGO format is there, government is also there. If when like that is what? Regulatory requirement means what? The auditor has to check, one, whether are there any specific standards for the special purpose financial reporting. That first point. Two, whether is there a regulatory requirement. Here government gave the grant, right? Here government is a regulatory for the grant. What government is asking? It is asking NGO to prepare financials in a certain format. So regulatory requirement also you should check. Suppose if there is a conflict. Suppose if there is a conflict between organization standards, the specific organization standards and regulatory requirement, which one will prevail? Auditor should ask the management. Auditor should look into the light of circumstances and decide. Sometimes special purpose financials may be prepared as per contractual obligations. To meet terms and conditions in the contract, special purpose financials has to be prepared as per the terms and conditions given in the contract. For example, here grant letter is there. Inside that grant letter, some additional conditions were given. That also has to be complied. Special purpose financials has to be prepared, keeping in mind important attributes to the users. For example, here when I am preparing financial statements separately for the governmental authority which gave me grant, the most important attribute they are asking me to focus is utilization of the grant. In the P&L account, I must separately show for grant expenses as separate items. Normally printing and stationery, the NGO incurred. From the grant also you might have spent printing and stationery. For every item you must also separate how much you spent from grant, how much you spent from your own donations, contributions, like that. What are the attributes to be given more focus on? What is the most important attribute in case of grants? The government authority want to know whether you are using the grant for the required purpose or not, stated purpose or not, whether the financial statements are achieving that transparency or not. That is the most important attribute. You're getting it. So the auditor has to check. If in case of special purpose financials, the financial information are very important factor to determine acceptability. So how they prepare financials? They will give you some rules. Are these rules acceptable for the user? Because here I am not doing audit from any common point of view of various users. No, I'm doing audit from the point of view of user. A specific user is there, he appointed me. I'm doing audit from his point of view. So is it acceptable for him? Is there any special organization for this to talk about the special needs? If so, check whether that is acceptable, we check whether that is applicable. Is there a regulatory requirement for special purpose financials? In this, if this situation is there any regulatory requirement? For example, sometimes government will be giving so many grants to various NGOs. In order for the government to know, whether these NGOs are properly utilizing, they established a framework for that. So for NGO, financial reporting framework for NGOs that are receiving donations from government of India. They published a framework. They published. So that framework is called as what? Organizational standards. Organizational standards means nothing but the framework may cover some standards established by organization that is authorized to promote standards for special purpose. If government established one framework, one department, one committee, and established one framework, like all the NGOs that are receiving grant from us, in addition to their regular financial statements which they prepare annually, they should prepare additional financial statements for our purpose exclusively. Like this, they established a body. See, regulatory requirement also. The body is established, fine. Now grant is given, right? Inside that grant, some terms and conditions were there which contains beyond the organization standards. For this particular NGO, we gave extra grant. So we want to put some additional terms and conditions. The auditor has to consider all this. When you are accepting a special purpose financials, is the special purpose financials are prepared exactly from the point of view of user? Are there any established organizational standards for preparing special purpose financials? Check out. Is there any regulatory requirement for the special purpose framework? Check out. If there is a conflict between these two, which is applicable, which that NGO has to follow, decide. Or sometimes the financial reporting framework is decided by the terms and conditions of the document. Grant letter, check that and see attributes were given major importance, because every financial reporting framework is giving certain focus on certain elements. Here, in case of this NGO, the major focus is on grant utilization, transparency, that one. See whether that attribute is addressed by the framework or not. See, otherwise there is no point. If the financials user want to know something about the financials, if the financials are not addressing that, which is actually required for the user, I should not accept that audit, because the financial statements are not acceptable. Ultimately, they became not acceptable. Why they are not acceptable? Because the financials are not prepared in accordance with the contractual provisions of the grant. Because they are not prepared as per the regulatory requirement, if at all there. They are not prepared as per the respective organizational standards, if at all there. So I will not accept. Our financial statements are not considering the need of the special user. If they are unacceptable, I will not consider, I will not accept. Understood? These are the two major questions. Especially the second question is what mainly people confuse. Like they don't understand the context of discussion here. Next. So what are the considerations when planning an audit ultimately? Okay, you understood, you decided, let us accept this engagement because the framework is addressing. All the issues. Now, what is the requirement? The auditor has to comply with the 200. And all the SCS relevant to audit also has to be complied with. All the standards that are relevant for audit has to be complied. Comply with standards on auditing. If at all you are deviating from standards, if at all you are deviating from any of the standard when you are performing special purpose financials, why are you deviating? What alternative method you followed? How does it achieve evidence? How does it achieve the objective of the standard? See, every standard has an objective. For example, 250 is there. The objective is very simple. Identify non-compliances that has an impact on financials. If so, report it to the users. As simple as this. This is the objective. To achieve this objective, what processes you should perform? 250 says. Like you verify legal expense account, you verify lawyers, internal counsel, you talk to management, you connect with external lawyers, somehow try to identify what are all the litigations, claims, pending liabilities, non-compliances with laws and regulations. So what are their consequences? All that you try to identify. So they are giving procedures to achieve this objective. Sometimes you may not follow one of the procedure given there. How, for example, external legal counsel you need to talk. You didn't follow that. Why you didn't follow? Because they're not cooperating. then how did you verify alternatively whether these information about non-compliances, how did you know? What alternative ways you performed to get this evidence? Prove that. You're getting it. So depart. So, when, auditor has to sometimes judge it necessary in exceptional circumstances to depart from the requirement of essay by performing alternative and application of some of the requirement of standards and auditing in application of special purpose framework. Obviously, we apply some of the standards and auditing requirements. For example, we take 320 standard, we apply materiality, we use 260 standard, even in special purpose framework, no? Remember, for special purpose framework, those charged with governance may be different. Generally, for general purpose financial statements, those charged with governance is so-and-so management. For special purpose framework, those charged with governance means a specific department would have been created for that. So who is those charged with governance in case of special purpose financials? Don't blindly apply 260 requirement, which generally talks about general purpose, adapted to special needs. When a complete set of financials is also prepared, when a complete set of general purpose are also prepared, those persons responsible may not be same those who are responsible for general purpose. Clear? So recognize. So various provisions of normal standards and auditing can be applied in special purpose financials. They'll give you an example. They'll give you this itself as a 4 marks question. Give you examples of, they'll give you a question like this. Give you examples of application of some of the requirements of standards on auditing on audit of special purpose financial statements that require special consideration. Give you examples. SA 320 we can apply. SA 500, whether evidence obtained by us is sufficient and appropriate. Even in special purpose framework also we should apply the same principles. How to audit special purpose financials? You do some risk assessment procedure, you do further audit procedure, all that you do. 315 we can apply. 260 you can apply. 570 you may have to check if at all there is a requirement. What not every standard will be applicable. 210 is applicable. You have to establish terms of engagement, right? When you're doing audit of special purpose financials, don't you require engagement letter? Which exactly defines what you have to do, what you're not supposed to do. Are you clear? Here they have given few examples, that's it. Then finally, auditor has to form the opinion. Now, what auditor has to describe? Write about description of applicable framework in audit report and alerting the users on its usage and distribution. Like for this, for example, this is 800 SA 800 related illustration. For better idea, I'm just showing you. This is the format of audit report that we generally give for 800. Independent auditors report, say heading will be same. Addressee to the addressee. This is old format of audit report. For November 24 exams, this only applicable. Even for May 24, unless institute gives a supplementary material saying that new material is applicable. In the sense, new format is applicable. Until now, for May 25, November 25, separate material itself is not there. The 2023 version material only is there. So, except that there is no other indication. For November, you need not worry at all. The same format is applicable. So, addressee, introductory para. We call it as what? Introductory. We have audited financial statements. Management is responsible. What is auditor responsibility? Opinion. Simply citing his opinion means what? Obviously, unqualified opinion. Now, this is reference to special purpose framework. Reference to special purpose framework in the audit report means what? In the audit report itself, I am telling you what is the basis of accounting. And not only that, special purpose financial statements are restricted for distribution and use, right? Are they publicly, can we put it? No, unless there is a requirement in the law. Is there any such requirement in India? No. In some other country, there might be such a requirement. Whatever purpose you are preparing financial statement, you should submit to the lawmaker. I want to know every internal affair. I don't want to leave. There might be a requirement like this. There might be a requirement in some companies across some countries that the company, even though they are preparing special purpose financials for some purpose, even though the contract is not materialized, you prepared for some contract purpose. Whether contract proceeded further or not doesn't matter. You prepared it, submit. There may be a requirement in some countries, some law. In India, there is no such requirement. Special purpose financial statements need not be submitted to lawmaker or regulatory, anywhere, not required. Without modifying, you see, the auditor started with the starting. I am not having objection. Look, without modifying, we draw attention to note number in the financial statement which describes the basis of accounting. The financial statements are prepared to assist the company to comply with the provisions of the contract referred above. As a result, the financials may not be suitable for another purpose. Our report is also purely for ABC company and DF company, should not be distributed or used by other parties. So if at all somebody accidentally got this audit report, after reading this, they will understand this is not meant for me. You're getting the point. So look at this. Now look at this. Alerting the readers of the financials. What? The special purpose financial statements may be used for the purpose other than those which they were intended. There is a possibility like this. For example, a regulator may require certain entities to place special purpose statements as a public record. So in such a case, especially, audit report must contain the clear side heading that basis of accounting and intended use and distribution. In addition to the alert required as discussed above, the auditor shall consider it appropriate to indicate audit report. It is purely for specific users. Depending on law, this may be achieved by restricting the distribution or use of the audit report. In these circumstances, paragraph alerting the readers may be expanded to include these matters also. Alerting the users that the basis of accounting is this. Alerting the users that this is useful only for them. So and so, not for others. These financial statements are not freely distributable. Are you clear? This is one of the reporting requirement. What introduction they are saying? Whether financial statements adequately refer the described, adequately describing the framework. Whether the financials are adequately describing the framework. This is a requirement in 700 also. In the case of financials prepared in accordance with the contract, suppose if I prepare as per a special purpose framework, the auditors check whether financials adequately describe the interpretation of the contract in the financials. We will check whether in the financial statements in so and so note point they clearly mentioned on what basis the financials prepared. If so, draw attention in the audit report. Basis for accounting. Understood? Because special purpose financial statements are not meant for everyone. The audit report on special purpose financial statements is not meant for everyone. So as an auditor, I should check whether financial statements which are prepared on special purpose, inside that notes, are they describing on what basis they are preparing. Even general purpose also, you see, basis of accounting they will mention. Even in every general purpose financials which is published by Tata Motors, all that, they mention, we prepare financial statements as per Ind AS. We prepare financial statements considering these principles. They mention all that. Same requirement is there for special purpose. And auditor should also mention about the same in the audit report. Are you clear? Especially this requirement of alerting the readers and the requirement of mentioning that it is restricted for use and distribution is even more important if at all the company is liable to place special purpose financials on a public domain. If at all privately given, even if I don't use that para in audit report, I'm not bothered because it won't go to anybody else. But if at all I have to place in a public domain, if at all that report is going to be used by multiple people, those specific users only, but a group of people are going to use, in these cases, considering that I'll put. But whether there's a requirement like that, I always put. In case of special purpose financials, I always put this. You clear? 800 is over. Easy. All of you. Technically 800 standard only little difficult in 800 series, but that 800 standard looks little vague, especially that second question, need of the user, organizational standards, contractual provisions. I gave you that NGO example. Understood? That's it. Otherwise you feel like reading the same points 3 times, but both those 3 points are slightly different. Just 2 minutes.